The Grand Regency Hotel in New York City gleamed under the lights of the lavish charity gala. The ballroom buzzed with the presence of high-profile guests, politicians, billionaires, Hollywood elites, and media moguls. The event, organized to raise funds for veterans, was the kind of gathering where deals were made in whispers, alliances were forged over champagne, and secrets were traded like currency. Barron Trump stood near the bar, sipping a glass of sparkling water, his 6'7" frame making him an imposing figure even among the most powerful men in the room. At 24, he had grown into a sharp, calculating young man, educated at the finest institutions, well-versed in business and politics, and blessed with his father's confidence and his mother's charm. But unlike his famous father, Barron preferred to observe rather than dominate conversations, his intellect hidden behind a quiet, composed demeanor. Tonight, however, his sharp instincts sensed something unusual in the air, a feeling that he was being watched. Across the room, Cassandra Blackwood, the wife of a well-known senator, sipped her red wine slowly, her gaze locked on Barron. She was in her mid-30s, a striking woman with auburn hair that cascaded over her shoulders in perfect waves. Her emerald green gown accentuated her hourglass figure, and the diamonds on her wrist sparkled every time she moved. She was used to being admired, and she thrived on the attention. But tonight, her eyes weren't searching for admiration. They were searching for conquest. She had spent the last few months watching Barron from afar, intrigued by the mystery surrounding him. While the world debated his future, whether he would enter politics, take over his father's empire, or forge his own path, Cassandra had a different kind of curiosity. She wanted to test the limits of his discipline, to see if beneath that composed exterior was a man who could be swayed by temptation. And tonight, she had decided, would be the night. As the string quartet played a soft melody, Cassandra excused herself from her group and made her way toward Barron. Her heels clicked against the marble floor with a deliberate slowness, her confidence unwavering. Barron caught her approach in his peripheral vision but remained still, pretending to be engrossed in a conversation with a retired general. He had seen that look before, the predatory gleam in a woman's eyes when they believed they had the upper hand. He had learned, both from his father's triumphs and missteps, how to recognize the difference between genuine interest and calculated manipulation. Cassandra reached him just as the general stepped away. She tilted her head slightly, a seductive smile playing on her lips. "Mr. Trump?" she purred, her voice smooth as silk. "I was hoping I'd get the chance to talk to you tonight." Barron turned to her, his expression unreadable. "Mrs. Blackwood," he acknowledged with a nod. "It's a pleasure." She chuckled softly. "Oh, please, call me Cassandra. Mrs. Blackwood makes me sound ancient." Barron didn't return her smile, but he didn't reject her company either. He knew how this game worked. The real question was, what was her endgame? Cassandra took a sip of her wine, her gaze lingering on his face. "You're quite the mystery, Barron. The world knows your name, but no one really knows you. That must be exciting." He met her gaze, unshaken. "Or perhaps I just prefer to keep my private life private." She laughed, a throaty sound designed to be alluring, spoken like a man who values control. But control can be so boring sometimes, don't you think? Barron raised an eyebrow. "Depends on what you're trying to control." Cassandra took a step closer, just enough to blur the lines between casual conversation and something more. "I wonder what it would take to make you lose that famous composure of yours." Barron didn't move. He didn't need to. He had already seen through her. And what Cassandra didn't realize was that the game she thought she was playing had just changed. Barron Trump remained still, his face a mask of calm indifference. Years of being under public scrutiny had taught him the value of restraint. While others reacted emotionally, he preferred to observe, assess, and then strike if necessary. And right now, he was certain of one thing. Cassandra Blackwood wanted something. The question was, why him? "I didn't expect you to be so reserved," Cassandra murmured, her voice dripping with suggestion. "A man like you, young, powerful. You could have anyone in this room eating out of your hand." Barron tilted his head slightly, letting the silence stretch. He knew the power of a pause. It forced people to fill the void, and in doing so, reveal their intentions. And yet, he said quietly, here you are, trying to understand me. Cassandra's lips curved into a smile. Is that such a crime? He leaned back against the bar, giving her a faint smirk. Depends on what you're hoping to discover. Cassandra liked to think she was in control. For years, she had navigated Washington's elite circles, using her beauty and cunning to manipulate outcomes in her husband's favor. But Barron Trump was different. He wasn't just another wealthy, impressionable heir. He was sharp, and the way his icy blue eyes seemed to pierce through her facade made her pulse quicken. She decided to push further. I find you fascinating, she admitted, her fingers tracing the rim of her glass. You're not like your father. You're quiet, calculating. I imagine there's a side of you that no one gets to see. Barron chuckled softly, a sound that sent a chill down her spine. People often confuse silence for weakness. But you know better than that, don't you, Cassandra? Her breath hitched slightly. He was baiting her now, but she wouldn't back down. You're dangerous, she whispered, stepping closer. The scent of her expensive perfume enveloped him. I like that. Barron took a deliberate sip of his drink, unfazed. He had dealt with women like Cassandra before, women who underestimated him because of his age. What they didn't realize was that he had learned from the best. His mother had taught him how to read people. His father had taught him how to outmaneuver them. You're married, Barron said suddenly, his voice low but firm. Cassandra's smile faltered for a split second. And yet you're here, he continued, his tone unreadable. With me. What would your husband think? A flicker of annoyance flashed in her eyes, but she recovered quickly. My husband is a very busy man. Besides, I'm not here for him. And what exactly are you here for? Cassandra placed her glass on the bar and leaned in so that only he could hear her next words. A little excitement. Something tells me you're not the type to play by the rules either. Barron met her gaze with a cool, unreadable expression. He knew how dangerous it could be to get entangled with a woman like Cassandra, especially with her husband being one of the most influential senators in Congress. But he also knew something else. She had underestimated him. Be careful what you wish for, he warned softly. You might not like the outcome. A spark of defiance lit up her face. I can handle myself, Barron. I'm sure you can, he replied smoothly. But the question is, can you handle me? For a brief moment, she was speechless. No one had ever turned the game on her like this. She had expected Barron to be like other men, eager, impulsive, easy to manipulate. But instead, he was studying her like a puzzle to be solved. And the more he remained composed, the more she wanted to break that composure. I'd love to find out, she said finally, her voice a seductive whisper. Barron tilted his head, pretending to consider her words. But inside, his mind was already 3 steps ahead. He knew that this wasn't just about attraction. Cassandra wanted leverage, something she could use against him or his family. And if that was her game, she had picked the wrong opponent. Just then, a sleek figure approached them. It was Olivia Moore, Barron's longtime friend and legal advisor. With her sharp black dress and no-nonsense demeanor, Olivia was the kind of woman who didn't play games. Excuse me, Olivia said, her tone polite but firm. Mr. Trump, the ambassador is ready to speak with you. Barron gave Cassandra one last, lingering look. Duty calls, he said smoothly. But as he turned to leave, he leaned in just close enough to whisper in her ear. I see through you, Cassandra, he murmured. And trust me, you don't want to play this game with me. Before she could respond, he was gone, leaving her standing alone at the bar, her confidence shaken for the first time in years. And as Barron walked toward the ambassador, he allowed himself a small smile. The game had only just begun. The ballroom glittered with opulence, but Barron Trump's mind was elsewhere. As he navigated the sea of power brokers and socialites, his thoughts lingered on Cassandra Blackwood. He knew her type, calculated, ambitious, and reckless when the stakes were high. But tonight, Her interest in him wasn't just casual flirtation. It was a move on a larger chessboard. Olivia Moore, ever the consummate professional, walked beside him. Her sharp gaze scanned the room, her senses on high alert. She had known Barron long enough to recognize when something or someone had caught his attention. "Are you going to tell me why Senator Blackwood's wife looks like she wants to devour you whole?" she asked quietly, a hint of dry humor in her tone. Barron smirked. "She's fishing for something. I'm just not sure what. Whatever it is, she's playing a dangerous game," Olivia warned. "You know how these things go, one wrong move, and the media will eat you alive." "I know," he said calmly. "That's why I'm staying 2 steps ahead." They reached the ambassador, engaging in a brief but meaningful conversation about international trade agreements. Barron's poise and intelligence were on full display, but even as he spoke fluently about economic policies, a part of his mind remained focused on unraveling Cassandra's true motives. When the conversation ended, Olivia pulled him aside. "I'll dig into her background," she offered. "If there's something she's hiding, I'll find it." Barron nodded. "Good. I have a feeling this is more than just a bored senator's wife looking for fun." As the night wore on, he kept a watchful eye on Cassandra. She flitted from one group to another, laughing effortlessly, but every so often, her gaze would drift back to him. It wasn't just attraction. There was something else behind those emerald eyes. And then, just past midnight, she made her next move. Barron had retreated to a quieter section of the venue, a private lounge reserved for VIP guests. He was scanning his phone when Cassandra appeared, her smile as dazzling as ever. "Funny running into you again," she said, closing the door behind her. He didn't rise, didn't offer her a drink. Instead, he watched her with that same cool detachment. "I figured you'd find me sooner or later." Cassandra sauntered closer, her gown clinging to every curve. "You're not an easy man to ignore." "I'm also not an easy man to manipulate," Barron countered smoothly. She laughed softly, as if the very idea amused her. "I think you enjoy this more than you let on." "And what exactly is this, Cassandra?" Her expression turned serious, the playful mask slipping for just a moment. "Two people who understand the world better than most. You and I, we're not like the others in that room." He leaned back in his chair, fingers steepled. "Is that your best attempt at flattery? You'll have to try harder." Cassandra's smile grew sharper. "What if I told you that I know things that could be very valuable to you? And what would you want in return?" She hesitated just for a beat. "Access, influence. I know how much power your family holds. I want a piece of it." So there it was, the truth beneath the seduction. She wasn't here for romance. She wanted leverage. "And your husband?" Barron asked coolly. "Does he know you're making deals behind his back?" A flicker of something crossed her face. Anger, perhaps. "My husband is a fool. All he cares about is his next re-election. But I see the bigger picture. I know what's coming." Barron remained silent, letting her reveal more. The longer she spoke, the more she exposed herself. "You're smarter than people give you credit for," she continued, stepping closer. "We could help each other, Barron. You have power, I have secrets. Together, we'd be unstoppable." He let the words hang in the air before delivering his next move. "And what if I already know your secrets?" he asked, his voice low and cutting. For the first time that night, Cassandra faltered. "What do you mean?" Barron rose slowly from his chair, towering over her. "Did you think I wouldn't notice your sudden interest in me? Or that I wouldn't dig into your background?" He took a step closer, his presence almost overwhelming. "Your husband's political career is hanging by a thread, isn't it? A corruption probe, misused campaign funds. He's one scandal away from losing everything. And here you are, trying to hedge your bets." Cassandra's confident facade cracked. "You wouldn't expose you," Barron finished. "Not unless I have to. But make no mistake, I'm not someone you can play with." For the first time in years, Cassandra Blackwood felt outmatched. She had walked into this game thinking she was the predator, only to realize too late that Barron Trump had been holding the cards all along. "You're not what I expected," she admitted quietly. No, Barron agreed. I'm much worse. As he turned to leave, he glanced back one last time. Stay out of my way, Cassandra. Next time, I won't be so generous. And with that, he was gone, leaving her alone in the dimly lit lounge, shaken and defeated. The limousine cruised through the darkened streets of Washington, D.C., its windows tinted against prying eyes. Barron Trump leaned back against the leather seat, his expression unreadable. Across from him, Olivia Moore tapped away on her tablet, her face illuminated by the soft glow of the screen. You rattled her, Olivia said, glancing up. I thought she was going to crack right there in the lounge. She was too confident when she approached me, Barron replied, his voice calm but sharp. No one risks that much without a safety net. Find out what she's really after. Olivia's fingers flew across the keyboard. I already started digging. Cassandra's husband, Senator Blackwood, is under federal investigation for misuse of campaign funds. But you knew that already. She paused, her brow furrowing. What you didn't know is that Cassandra has her own game going on. Offshore accounts, dummy corporations, someone's paying her, and they're paying her a lot. Barron's eyes narrowed. Who? I'm working on it, Olivia said. But there's one name that keeps popping up, Harlan Kessler. The name triggered something in Barron's memory. Harlan Kessler was a tech mogul turned political strategist, notorious for using backdoor deals and digital espionage to manipulate elections. If Cassandra was working with Kessler, this wasn't just about seduction, it was about power. She's a plant, Barron murmured. Kessler sent her to get to me. Why you, though? Olivia asked, locking her screen. Why not your father? Because I'm the easier target, Barron said. They think I'm young and impulsive. They expect me to make a mistake. But you didn't, Olivia pointed out with a smile. You flipped the board on her. Barron's expression softened slightly. It's not over yet. She won't back off that easily. As the limousine pulled to a stop outside the Trump family estate, Barron's mind was already moving 3 steps ahead. He knew Cassandra would try again, and when she did, he would be ready. The next morning, Barron received an invitation, delivered by a private courier. The card was expensive, embossed with gold lettering. Exclusive charity gala, hosted by Harlan Kessler. Your presence is requested. No signature, no details, but the message was clear. They're not wasting any time, Olivia remarked when he showed her the card. Good, Barron said, slipping it into his jacket pocket. Neither am I. The gala was held at a sprawling mansion just outside the city, a fortress disguised as luxury. Inside, Washington's elite mingled beneath glittering chandeliers, while a live orchestra played a haunting melody. Barron arrived alone, dressed in a tailored black suit that exuded quiet power. Every step he took was deliberate, calculated. He wasn't here to play games, he was here to win. And, as expected, Cassandra was already there. She stood near the balcony, a glass of champagne in her hand. When she spotted him, her lips curved into a smile that didn't reach her eyes. You're either very brave or very foolish, she said as he approached. I could say the same about you, Barron replied smoothly. Cassandra tilted her head. Why did you come? Curiosity, he said. And because I wanted to see how far you're willing to go. Her smile faded, replaced by something colder. You think you have it all figured out, don't you? I do, Barron said, stepping closer. You're working for Harlan Kessler. He wants something from my family, and you're his messenger. A flicker of surprise crossed her face, but she recovered quickly. And if I am? Then you've already lost, Barron said quietly. Because I know exactly how to beat you. Cassandra laughed softly, but there was a hint of nervousness in her voice. You're playing with fire, Barron. No, he corrected. I'm controlling it. Without another word, he slipped a small envelope into her hand and walked away. Inside the envelope was a single sheet of paper with a simple message. I know everything. Walk away while you still can. In a quiet corner of the mansion, Harlan Kessler watched the exchange through hidden cameras. He had underestimated the youngest Trump, but that was a mistake he wouldn't make again. Barron Trump had declared war. and he was ready for whatever came next. The days following the gala were unusually quiet. Too quiet. Cassandra Blackwood had vanished from the public eye, her social calendar mysteriously cleared. Harlan Kessler, ever the ghost, had retreated into the shadows. But Barron Trump knew better than to relax. Silence in their world meant the storm was coming. Seated in his father's private study, Barron reviewed the latest intelligence Olivia had compiled. Bank records, encrypted messages, and surveillance feeds, all pointing to one undeniable conclusion. Kessler was planning something big. And whatever it was, it involved more than political blackmail. This isn't just about me, Barron mused aloud. He's after the administration. Olivia, leaning against the mahogany desk, folded her arms. Then why go through you? Why not aim directly at your father? Because I'm the weak link, Barron admitted, though without a trace of insecurity. At least that's what they think. If they can bait me into a scandal, it undermines the family, and by extension, the presidency. Olivia raised a brow. What's the play then? We strike first. 3 nights later, Barron found himself at yet another high society event. This time, a private intelligence summit masquerading as a charity auction. Beneath the glittering exterior, it was a hub for power players and information brokers. And, as he expected, Cassandra was there. She wore a sleek black gown that shimmered under the low lights, her every movement calculated to draw attention. But tonight, Barron wasn't watching her, he was watching the man by her side. Harlan Kessler. For the first time, the puppet master had stepped out from behind the curtain. The man was older than Barron expected, late 50s, with silver hair and the cold, polished demeanor of someone used to getting his way. But there was something else in his eyes, something dangerous. When their gazes met across the room, Kessler smiled. A predator recognizing a rival. Barron didn't flinch. He moved through the crowd with effortless confidence, approaching Kessler and Cassandra as though they were old friends. Mr. Kessler, Barron greeted smoothly, extending a hand. I've heard a lot about you. And I about you, Kessler replied, his grip firm. The youngest Trump. Quite the rising star, I'm told. Barron let a slow smile spread across his face. I try to live up to the family name. Living up to it isn't enough, Kessler remarked, his tone sharpening. You have to surpass it, or you're nothing more than a shadow. Barron tilted his head, feigning curiosity. Is that what you tell all your protégés? Kessler's smile didn't waver, but something flickered in his eyes. Only the promising ones. Cassandra, sensing the tension, intervened with a laugh. Gentlemen, let's not turn a party into a battlefield. But it already was. Barron played his next move. I understand you've been quite interested in my work, Mr. Kessler. Something I can help you with? Kessler's expression turned calculating. Ambition is a powerful thing, Barron. It makes men do remarkable and dangerous things. The question is, are you ambitious enough to join the winning side? The trap was set. But Barron had come prepared. I prefer to define the winning side myself, Barron said, his voice cool. Speaking of which, you might want to check your offshore accounts. For the first time, Kessler's composure cracked, just a fraction. You see, Barron continued, stepping closer. When someone tries to manipulate me, I take it personally. So I took a little dive into your operations. Very clever, those dummy corporations you use to launder political bribes. Unfortunately, not clever enough. Kessler's jaw tightened. You have no idea who you're playing with, boy. Oh, I do, Barron countered. That's why I made sure copies of everything are already with the Department of Justice. Should anything unfortunate happen to me or my family, your empire crumbles. The silence stretched taut between them, charged with unspoken threats. And Cassandra? Barron added, turning his attention to her. I'd suggest finding a new employer. This one's shelf life is about to expire. Her face paled, the realization sinking in. She had backed the wrong horse. Barron leaned in, his voice dropping to a lethal whisper. I warned you not to play games with me. And with that, he walked away, leaving Kessler and Cassandra to stew in the ruins of their plans. A week later, the headlines were relentless. Billionaire strategist Harlan Kessler under federal investigation. Campaign corruption scheme exposed. Senator Blackwood's wife implicated in scandal, secret ties to Kessler revealed. The fallout was swift and brutal. Kessler's empire imploded under the weight of evidence, and Cassandra, stripped of her influence, became a cautionary tale. In the Trump family estate, Barron watched the news with quiet satisfaction. He had not only dismantled their plans but turned their weapons against them. "You played them perfectly," Olivia remarked, settling into a chair beside him. Barron smiled faintly. "They thought I was a pawn. I showed them I'm the king." As the sun set over Washington, Barron Trump knew one thing for certain. This was only the beginning. In a world of power and deception, he wasn't just surviving.